My guest today is filmmaker and actress Maia Scalia. Now, she has had supporting roles in Sony Marvel's Morbius, Phyllis Nagy's Call Jane, starring Elizabeth Banks and Sigourney Weaver, and the Starz series Three Women. Now, Maia comes from a family rich in film history. Her father, Pietro Scalia, is a two-time Academy Award winner. Now, her latest short film titled His Mother is inspired by a true story which touches on gun violence and the impact this has on a mother who is trying to stop her son from doing the unthinkable. Now, this incredibly gripping film has been selected for the Oscar qualifiers, both Holly Shorts Film Festival and Flicker's Rhode Island International Film Festival. Now, in the film, actress Bethany Ann Lynn gives an absolute captivating performance as the mother Julie. She is also best known in her roles in Ozark, Stranger Things, and played the lead in the film Blood on Her Name. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker Maia Scalia and her powerful, heart-stopping short film, His Mother, to the show. Welcome, Maia.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I have been looking forward to this interview after I watched your film, your short film, His Mother. There are films that come along every film season that is the very film that grabs you, doesn't let go, and you cannot erase it from your mind. This is that film. And it's extremely rare because I only see maybe one or two films that actually stay with me a very long time after viewing it, and His Mother is that film.
Wow, thank you. I mean, to hear that it left such an impact on you is really meaningful to me. That's thank you.
Well, your film is not only riveting and literally ripped my heart out, but in 11 minutes and 51 seconds, you were able to cover mental health, gun violence, and a mother's love and her desperation. My first question to you is, as a society, are we ignoring the warning signs of those who are hurting and troubled?
Um, that's a really complex question. It's a very difficult question to answer. I think that we are constantly trying to figure that out. But a huge part of what inspired me to make this film was focusing on a character that is in this sort of national drama that we see unfold time and time again, who is often either villainized or victimized and maybe placed into this archetypal role rather than allowing her to be complex and nuanced. And I was hoping that, you know, while I don't know if I can answer the question of like, are we missing the warning signs? I was hoping by placing the audience members in um, the mother's point of view for those minutes, if we could start having conversations around it.
Well, let's do that because I know that, you, I, the rest of the nation, we see this time and time again, and we hear the same narratives being brought up in the media. Mental health, gun violence. Everybody wants to talk about it, but nobody wants to do anything about it. Then they tell us if you see something, say something. But your film makes this so close to the heart because you brought it from a parent's perspective, not the media's perspective, not the government's perspective. You brought this from a mother's perspective. So let's talk about this film. It's riveting, extremely tense, where you give no escape for the audience. Why was it so important to keep the audience contained within the sequence of events?
I think I when I was sort of approaching this story in the beginning and trying to figure out the way that I could tell this, obviously I wanted to approach it with a lot of compassion and being really careful in which I told the story. And I think that once I landed on placing it 13 minutes in real time, living through the sequence of events, like you said, sort of so closely with her, I felt like that was the best way to invite the audience into something so complex. Um, and really the best way to align the audience with our main character. If you have to live through those moments, do you then come out the other side maybe feeling slightly different? I don't know, but that was sort of where that came from. And the idea of setting it sort of inside of a car in this very claustrophobic environment was to have that sort of encroaching anxiety and this idea, you know, that she has a mission that she's trying to accomplish, and there's all these outside variables happening, which is something that I think is very relatable for a lot of people, you
And
know,
you, yeah, because you did something in this film which I really appreciated. She's in the car and she's racing to find her son. And you bring in outside, you bring other characters into the scenario via the phone. You have a police officer, you have a counselor, and you have the father. What I loved was the fact that you created this dynamic between the mother and the father, because she's afraid that the son could harm himself or possibly someone else. The father, knowing about his son's mental health, comes across a little bit as if he's in denial or he doesn't want anybody outside the family to know. So he actually got upset when when the mother called the police. I watched this film more than once, and so I paused it because I actually went back to watch the scene between her and the father, and I wanted to truly absorb that. He actually got up, like I said, he actually got upset when she called the police. When I watched it and I listened, it really comes down to the fact that all of those were just natural emotions that people express, good or bad. But why is it important to express the different emotions people use to cope when mental health is an obvious issue in their family? Because he was like, I don't want nobody to know, you know, and she doesn't, to her, this situation, it doesn't matter right now. He was thinking of how it's going to appear to him or to the family. And I went, that is a natural emotion. And you
Mm,
captured it.
thank you. Well, no, I appreciate you that you brought this up because it has me thinking about these choices. And part of what I was trying to figure out was like, you know, with a short film, it's so contained, it's fast. You have to tell this a whole story in a small amount of time. And I tried to think about all these characters that she's talking to as different parts of herself in a way. So at one moment, maybe someone represents the guilt that she feels for feeling this way about her child, or the denial, like you said, or the anger, or, you know, the self-doubt. What if you are wrong in thinking this, or what if you're not making the right decision? So I think that conversation with the father is a representation of what you're saying, like, you know, this denial, the self-doubt, the guilt, the all these, I mean, I keep saying complex feelings, but it is about complexity. So I wondered if I could bring in little notes of that so that whoever the audience members are can hold on to those, even if it's subconscious or accidental. Maybe it hits them in that way, or like
And
relate to it.
Yeah, subconscious. Because that's why I went back to the scene. Because in a way, the father alone, there is, and this happens in thousands upon thousands of families across the country. Someone in the family has a mental health issue. Some they work hard, they embrace it, they do what they can, and then there are those that I don't want my friends to know, I don't want my coworkers to know. It's almost this feeling of embarrassment, and I hate to use that word, but it's a feeling of embarrassment. But no one has to be embarrassed. But that was again that natural emotion, and you brought up the perfect word. It's a for the audience. It's a little subconscious little things going on within the dialogue from the mother and the father in that scene. And I even had to go back to the dialogue between her and the counselor, and I sat there and I went, "That's exactly what a counselor would say."
Mm,
And but because he's coming from a very professional point of view, and so I'm like, okay, yeah, that's exactly what any counselor would say or should say. And
yeah.
but I you couldn't have picked a better actress.
I know. She is amazing. Bethany Ann Lind is her name. She took me a long time to find her. And when I did, I knew instinctually that she was right. And it's such an amazing performance. And it was not easy to pull off. I mean, I asked her to really drive in a car in the suburbs of Atlanta and really operate the phone. The other actors were really calling in. All of it was live because I wanted her to, really feel that kind of anxiety of having to juggle operating a car and dealing with these phone calls. And I think that, I asked a lot of her, but she is so incredible. So incredible. And I got
Okay,
to see it on the big screen and I was like, wow.
yeah, that was the thing. I besides all the dialogue, which was spot on, the whole short like was filmed inside of a car.
Yes.
As a director, how do you direct this continuous scene? I mean, were you in the car with her?
I was at certain points in the trunk or squished in the back seat. It's funny. I've said this a couple times recently, but when I was writing this short film, this is my first time directing anything and making something that I wrote. So I thought, oh, I'm so smart. I'm going to put it inside of a car because then I don't have to worry about, I mean, for a short film, you have a much smaller budget. So I was like, oh, I'm not gonna have to worry about locations. Like, this is so smart. It'll be contained. It will be fast. I'll just do it in like a day or two. An incredibly novice decision. And I learned that really quickly. It was very difficult to shoot inside of a car, but I had the most amazing collaborators with me from start to finish. And on set, they really we found solutions to make things work. We all just everyone just said yes and were willing to do anything to make it work. And I'm really grateful.
From a cinematographer's point of view, because I've seen films or short films where they are filmed with in a very contained space. And a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to film inside of a car, or I've seen somewhere filmed inside of a train or a bus or a trolley, and you're dealing with reflections from the glass or from the windows, I should say, from the windows. Um, First of all, what type of camera did you use to film this short?
We used an Alexa Mini, so it's a big camera, but it's compact. And
Right.
our DP was squished inside the car with her. I mean, that camera was in her face. But we made decisions like I wasn't going to shoot outside of the car at all because You need a process trailer. It was just a bit more complicated. And then, very last minute, we decided to do one long take of the entire film from start to finish with the camera strapped to the hood of the car to have that as coverage. And like, when you say things about reflection, it's like, we figured out how to incorporate it rather than fight it, because we knew, we're making short film. We have 2.5 days to finish this. You have to embrace those things rather than try and fight it. And as a first time director, I thought at first, like, no, I don't want this, I don't want that. But then I learned to sort of embrace these things because it adds a quality to the film, So,
Well, you filmed in Atlanta. I
mhm.
was born there.
Oh,
So
amazing.
to deal with a lot of trees, and at least the sun was out. So you're getting a lot of this reflection, but it's realistic. It was perfect. It was not like you were having to cover up some windows with black tint or whatever. It was real because ladies and gentlemen, every second of this film, you are riding with the main character, Julie, and you are going to feel every element of this film. And Maya, you keep calling yourself a first film that you've directed. This film comes across like you've done 20 of these.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. That means
Yeah.
a lot.
And I'm expecting a lot from this film. Now, in the filmmaking process of this short, what was the most difficult part of filming from the inside and capturing the mother's urgency to find her son?
There was so much. It was like, the first part of the difficulty was really being careful and considerate when approaching the story. And then when I got to set, the difficulty became, how do you, I mean, much like the character in the film who's juggling all of these different things, we on set, with a team of about 23 people, all like one car that's driving has Julie and me, the DP sound, and then the follow car has the script supervisor, the producer. We had to sort of like just, it almost felt like a dance. Like, I don't even know how we were able to do it, but we just kind of got into the rhythm and then figured it out. But it was technically very, very difficult. And I think that, you know, a lot of people had suggested that I shoot it on a soundstage with like the LED screens. And I'm very glad that I didn't. I think that because of those circumstances and because everyone had to be on the same page in order for it to work, it allowed Bethany, my lead actress, to really be in the moment and allow all of these things that were happening around her to really affect her. And I mean, she's an amazing actress, and she was able to just let it happen to her. And I'm glad that we embraced what was difficult rather than try and make it easy.
I'm glad you went the difficult route because every single element, if you just removed her acting alone, all the other elements, they're real. We all know what it's like driving a car, being upset. You have all of these outside elements. You've got the street. You've got her coming up on the three cars and the guy's standing there with a stupid construction stop sign, and you're like, and you can feel that anticipation. I mean, I wanted to get outside the car and go punch him in the face and say, let this woman through.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah. And by the way, was that planned?
It was planned. It was planned. But there was some things that were not, that we captured by accident. Like, there were sirens and like cops going by that were not planned, stuff like that, where we were like, it just kind of worked. We were like, let's grab it. But that was planned. Yeah, we set that up. and actually there's a car that drives towards her in that moment, and it's my aunt and my mom. So it was amazing. I had like all of my family on set with me. They're very proud of the fact that they drove the car in that moment.
Well,
But it's
then okay, let's talk about Bethany, because ladies and gentlemen, if you are an actor or an actress, this film, His Mother, is a lesson in acting. This is a film you want to sit down for 11 minutes and 51 seconds, and you want to sit there and what you want to watch it from beginning to end, watch it as the film. If you're an actor or actress, go back and start watching exactly what Bethany is doing, saying. I mean, there are so many elements, Maya, that is this film is going to teach the craft of acting. After I watched this film a couple of times, the first thought that entered my mind about Bethany was this: how many takes did she have to do that the whole sequence in the car, and how emotionally exhausted was she?
yeah, I mean, look, it was really tough to live in that space for anyone. I mean, to have to like access that, and then we're asking you to do it like over and over. And so it, because of my acting background, it was really important to me to create an environment where we weren't breaking her focus, like not being like cut everyone reset, like and then she has to deal with all these different elements. So something that we kind of had to find it on the days, like we didn't know initially how we were going to approach it, but we broke the script up into chunks, so she would do a certain chunk at a time. We filmed almost entirely chronologically. I didn't want to have to like throw her into the emotion at the end in the beginning, and that I thought if we could sort of build that way, it I mean, she didn't need that. She could have handled anything I threw at her, but that was an idea. And she I guess one of the biggest things with this film is like it's asking any actor to buy in to and accept an experience that is maybe very different from their own experience, and one that's maybe difficult or scary or hard to relate to, and something that Bethany was able to bring to it. She's a mother of two children, and she approached it as a mother, and that was it. And I think that's why, like, her performance is so moving and so impressive, because she approached it as a mom, and then she let everything else just unfold in the moment and affect her as we went. And I think that's really like where her, like, she's a master of her craft, and I think that shows it. Yeah.
So how many takes did you actually have to do?
We filmed with Bethany for 2 days. And each scene had a different amount of takes. There was obviously technical difficulties getting people to call in, and calls dropping, and all of these things, but we did, gosh, some were like 1 to 2 takes, some were 10 takes. But what I actually wanted to do is rather like do a take and then stop, reset. I was just like, let's do it over and over. So you're going to do, this chunk of the scene. And then once it's done, start again. And then once it's done, start again. We're just going to keep rolling so that we don't, we can just kind of build the momentum that way. So I don't remember exactly how many takes, but I think that method of just keep rolling, keep going, and letting that sort of feed the performance was helpful.
I mean, when she read the script for the first time, what went through her mind?
She actually, I was just with her and we talked about it a little because we hadn't talked about it before. And she was like, it was one of those scripts that I was like, she said that she felt so moved by it, and it hit her in the gut, and she just felt like she had to do it regardless of if she was scared or worried about anything. She knew it was something she needed, to take a chance on. And as a writer director, like that means so much to me. And I know it's like it's hard with a short film and small budget and unknown director, and you never know. But I'm so glad that she trusted her gut and came and did it with us.
Yeah, this film, it there's just so much to it, and that's why I love short films, because there's just, it's amazing what you can do or how much you can put into one, and you did. I mean, and I tell filmmakers this all the time: when I see a stellar short film, especially when the acting, you can't ignore it. Sometimes I wish that the Academy would have categories for Oscars for actors in a short film, because Bethany would be nominated. I would
I
almost
agree.
I would almost say she could win it, because
Yeah.
this performance. Oh my God. It's so funny because as many people as I talk to, we always talk about short films and where the industry needs to start paying far more attention to the power of the short film. And you did this perfectly. And I think now as I'm looking back at this film, you've set the example and you've raised the bar. And what I mean by that is this: you have created a film in which all of us as a society can learn from. And, I know most short films, I guess, I'm not going to say most short films are entertaining, um, because some of them are very dark and dramatic. And sometimes after you watch one, you're just like, I need to go take a shower, or I need to
Yeah.
go outside and get some air. Yours wasn't that way, but you have created a film that is a teaching tool. And I don't mean about the acting, just the story, a true life story that, again, all of us as a society needs to sit down and we need to realize, because we've seen this scenario on the news over and over again. But you bring up something that no one ever wants to talk about. They don't want to talk about the mother and the father. They don't want to talk about that side. It's almost like we want to ostracize them from society because, look what you bred. Oh, this is your fault. And we can't be that way as a society. How are we going to heal or grow and be better people if we start shoving people off to the side because something bad happened? Why aren't we embracing, we're sorry this happened? No one should be going through this. uh but I'm not going to give the
Yeah.
ending. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think it's a great point, and if I hope that in people who watch this film, my I approach it with compassion, and that's how I would want people to leave it, though it's out of my control. And I think you make a good point about ostracizing these kinds of people. I think we do that because it's easier. It's hard to in inexplicable tragedy or these things that happen, and we don't want to have to investigate it because it's scary and dark and weird. And I think when we ostracize these characters, we choose not to engage with it, we take away our own complicity. We don't want to know how we're involved. And I think it's important to embrace understanding the other side of the
Yeah,
story.
and part of the public is more of like, not my problem, and that's wrong. And ladies and gentlemen, this film, the short film His Mother, is extraordinary. And Maya, what was the crowd's reaction to the film at Holly Shorts?
Yeah, it was, it was the second time I watched it with an audience, I was very nervous. It played first in its block, so it was a bit of a sucker punch for the beginning of the block. But it was really amazing. The reception was amazing. I talked to a lot of people after the film who came up and they said things like, I never considered that side of the story, but now I'm thinking about it. And like hearing that is huge for me. I don't need to know if they agree with what I've made or without, but just to hear that they're now considered a different side of a story that is so multifaceted, that was the coolest sort of outcome of seeing it on the big screen at Holly Shorts.
Well, I'm glad they felt that way, and I'm not going to give the ending away, but two questions.
Yes.
What was the reaction from the audience on that point? And who in the world mixed your sound?
The audience, it was definitely like a moment. And then, the ending, it ends in a very specific place for a very specific reason. And in the theater, it was very quiet before people started clapping, which I thought was really interesting. And I was glad about because it was, I think, a big, a big moment. And then my sound was, I worked with amazing sound designers from 424 Post. And then I was lucky enough to work with Kevin O'Connell, who is like a 21-time Oscar nominated sound mixer, which was such a gift. And the whole 424 Post team under this amazing guy named Kami and Kevin, they really, sound is such an important part of this film, and they worked so hard and worked with me and guided me through that process. Again, it was my first time ever mixing a film, and it was amazing. It was they did such a beautiful job. They were so specific, so nuanced. So I hope that's how people hear it. They see the.
Yeah, I know, I understand why he was nominated 20 times because the sound, the mixing of the sound in this short film, and I don't usually bring up sound to a filmmaker. It's pretty much a given. Now I may make a comment on, oh, like the music was fantastic. The music played such a major part in the film. But this one, wow. I mean, you from the moment this film starts to the moment this film ends, it's just realism through the 11 minutes 51 seconds, and you did a stupendous job on this
Thank you.
film. I mean, you better be careful. I think the studios are going to start knocking on your door and want you to start directing major features. They may just stick James Gunn off to the side and have you do the next Marvel or something. I don't know.
No, but thank you. It's so nice to hear that again. Like, it's my first time putting work out into the world as a director. So it's such an honor to hear that. And, I am so lucky, I have to say, for the collaborators that I had on this project, because being a first time director, so many of them were far more experienced than me, and they taught me so much through every phase of this project. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful. And it was so much fun to make this film. I mean, it was a hard film, it's a sad film, but it was very fun to work with all these people.
Now, your father, Pedro, is executive producer.
Yeah.
Uh, was it, and I'm sure you've learned a lot from him. He's got two Oscars to prove his worth. Uh, was he hands off?
No, so he actually also edited it. He's an editor. So he, in terms of executive producing, yes, but he, I was lucky enough to after we finished shooting, I went to LA and I got to work with him. He was editing Ferrari at the time, Michael Mann's Ferrari, and I got to work with him on the weekends. So I'm incredibly lucky that my dad gave up his weekends to edit my short film. But he was really hands-on, and it was, I'm extremely lucky to have him as a mentor for guidance through the whole process. And, when we were in the editing room together, it's really special to be able to work with your dad. I feel really lucky. It was cool to see your dad in a different way than just your father, and see him, he is such a master at his craft, and to be able to sit there and learn from him was a gift. And I think the most interesting part of the process was, I would be like, "Oh, Dad, can we try this?" And he'd go, "I don't know. Can we?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. Like, you've done this for 40 years. Is this something we can do?" And he'd go, "Well, why do you want to do it?" And he'd keep saying, "Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to make that choice?" And we'd argue about it and argue. And I was like, "You know what? Let's just move on." And he was like, "No, if you believe in it, you have to fight for it. You have to fight for what you believe in as a director, because these choices are really important. And I want to know why you believe in it." And oftentimes after we were arguing back and forth, I realized that he agreed with the choice I was making, but he wanted me to understand why I was making those choices. And
Oh,
that was a huge, amazing learning experience. Yeah.
he is a great teacher. A
Yes. Yeah.
great teacher, because one day, there's going to be a studio that's going to hire you to direct a film, and I guarantee you that that scenario is going to come up again. You're going to have the vision. You see what needs to be done. You see the shot, the scene, that how it needs to be, and then some guy from the studio is going to say, "No, we can't do that," and then you're going to fight for that. And I've heard stories from others. It happens a lot, but I think he was setting you up for the bigger picture. But wow, what a first film, Maya. I literally could just go on and on, because your father may have two, but I think the Scalia family may be looking at a third with this film.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, it was it has, being able to make a film, I feel really lucky, and being able to see it at Holly Shorts, I feel really lucky. And seeing it, my dad, another lesson he taught me was when I was in the editing room with him, he said, "When you're writing, it's one film. When you're shooting it, it's another film. Now that we're editing it, it's a completely different film, and you have to let it tell us how it wants to be. It's going to show us how it wants to unfold." And then he was like, "And then when you see it on the big screen, it's not yours anymore. That's for the world now. So it's a completely different film then." And that, I think, was like, you know, as a first time director, it was really cool. And I'm very happy. I feel like, I'm excited to make the next thing. And I didn't know that I'd have this much excitement at the end of this project.
I would have never, if I would have ran the block at Holly Shorts, I would have never put your film first. I would have put your film last. Because
Yeah.
I would be the type that would watch all the films, and then I would sit there and put them in correct order. Because the whole
Mm,
point is getting the audience's reaction. But in the end, if you have a block, and I'm only saying this from my point of view, if you have a block of films and there's that one that stands out, one that you're not going to be able to shake, don't show it before another film. Make it last, because once it's
mm,
last, it's the last thing people will remember.
mm.
And that yours is that type of film. But Maya, 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 I loved this film on so many different levels. And ladies and gentlemen, this film, inspired by a true story, This is Maia Scalia's directorial debut. The film His Mother takes the viewer, takes the audience through a gripping and terrifying journey as a mother races to stop her son from doing the unthinkable. This riveting short highlights the complexities of being a mother of a child who commits a violent crime and broadens the ongoing dialogue around mental health and gun violence by offering a perspective that is so often silenced in social dialogue. Now, as a society, we are going to have to be bolder, but also more compassionate to the hidden darkness and the pain that many people live with on a daily basis. We can't continue to be numb and avoid the signs that are actually before us. Maia Scalia's film is such a much needed reminder that goes far beyond if you see something, say something. This short film, His Mother, actress Bethany Ann Lind gives an award-winning performance. As I said, I would give her an Oscar for this performance because that's how good she portrayed the mother Julie. Her performance reaches the very depths of your soul and rips your heart out. And for some, it could be excruciating to watch. And it should be, because mental health is no joke. The cinematography of this film is stellar. Filming from inside a car, dealing with multiple changes in light and shadows is no easy task. But Matt Clegg made it look easy. Now, the camera movement added to the tense situation, as well as the varieties of tense dialogue. I give His Mother the Bond on Cinema reel of approval, and I want to thank you, Maia, for sharing this very powerful, riveting, emotional short film with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for chatting with me. It's been amazing, and hearing your perspective and how it left you feeling was like very much an honor.
Well, you are very welcome. And again, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you get the chance to see, after His Mother finished its festival run, you'll most likely be able to see the film His Mother. You need to watch it. This is one of the very rare films that when you do see it, it will leave a lasting impression. I'm sitting here, and the very thing that keeps flashing into my mind is the look on the mother's face. Unforgettable. I'll say
Yeah.
that. Unforgettable.
Yeah.
So I want to thank all of you for watching. And as for me, I'll either see you at the movies or from the red carpet.